So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. This is episode number 196.
The Mothman Legacy, Brown Mountain Lights area UAP sightings, and big cats in western North Carolina.
Yeah. So, welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And we're your host for an hour plus maybe long adventure. I don't know, it always kind of varies because he has a beautiful thing about a podcast. It can be as long as or as short as it needs to be.
True.
Yeah, this time we have a lot of stuff to talk about.
Okay.
Including something we didn't put in the title.
What was that?
I'm not going to say it because it's a surprise.
Oh, okay.
It's also silly. So anyway, we have a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today, including the movie that we've seen.
Yeah.
And we are slightly excited by that. Was don't get all crazy and make a scene. You know what I mean? No, it ain't. Okay, so with 2020 being the way it is, I've been trying to be low key.
Okay.
Maintain a low profile. I feel like I've already tempted fate enough this year. So it's like, between the broken neck and everything like that and just the way things have been going, I try not to cause any problems, man. I'm staying in my lane.
Sure.
I am.
Okay.
Something falls on the ground, I leave it. I'm not picking it up. I'm not bending over. I'm not no risk, man. No unnecessary risk this year.
Okay.
Until the end. And that even goes as far as my viewing choices. Right? With all these creepy stuff from Halloween time, right? It's spooky time. Mm-hmm. You're watching some of the scary movies and I'm watching like Charlie Brown Halloween.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, The Great Pumpkin. Safe for TV kind of stuff, man. I don't want no problems. Because problems is all 2020 has been for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been some shiny spots to it for sure. But some dinge.
Some dinge.
Yeah.
So it's affecting your viewing choices.
Absolutely. It's affecting everything. I'm safe.
Okay.
I'm being safe. I want to be marked safe from 2020.
Okay.
Come 2021.
Yes.
Because as we know, in accordance with the dumpster fire stickers that you saw, it has been a little bit of a dumpster fire.
That's true.
Yeah. So now one of the shows that we like to pay attention to, and I shouldn't say shows, but there are shows. There's shows, there's episodes, there's movies from the Small Town Monsters crew in South Breedlove.
Episodic documentaries.
Yeah, you've got that, and you've got like On the Trail of UFOs, and you've got like movies. Mm-hmm. So you have a YouTube channel, and they have all this stuff that you can like partake of. So it kind of depends on what you want to watch. But this year, so far, we're talking about the most recent sort of serving up of some goodness, and that's right in time for Mothman, actually.
Yeah, the Mothman Legacy. So,
yeah, because the Mothman events sort of kick off in November for whatever reason, whether it's the sightings or whatever. But November is like Mothman time, right?
Yeah.
And we're coming up towards the beginnings of November, and it kind of makes sense that this movie came out in spooky time, October. Yeah. So it's kind of like, all right, Raccoon came out on the 20th. But so anyway, to get kind of roundabout to it, the Mothman Legacy movie, we watched it.
Yes.
So this is kind of one of those things where some of our friends and compadres have already seen it and done reviews and put it up on their websites and blogs and tweeted and stuff like that. And honestly, I just kind of wanted to hold off.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because everybody rushes to be first. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, okay, so we started watching The Voice, and don't judge. All right? And, everybody, like, they hear one or two notes, and they hit the button and turn around and like, oh, my God. Mm-hmm. Then you got the people that want it a lot. And they're the ones that are patient.
Okay.
You know what I mean? What's his face? What's the dude? The older
Blake.
Yeah. He waits. He listens. And he ingests it. And, and I think he appreciates it more, and that carries him a longer way towards winning The Voice. So anyway, I wanted to wait. And so we did. We waited, and I read some reviews that are on the internets, and we seen little clips here and there and stuff. And then we just watched it. And I found that I've enjoyed it, I think, much more than I would if I'd have jumped on the bandwagon and watched it way early.
Okay.
Because we had the opportunity to watch it way early. We've had it for, a month?
Yeah.
So.
Well, we had access to it for a month.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had access to it for a while. We waited. And I found that we watched it, and there's some things about it that I like. And there's some things about it that I had questions about. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about it. And it's Mothman Legacy. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So anyway, here's the deal. So when we talk about this kind of thing, if you find yourself wanting to communicate with us, we have a phone number for you. You can call. And that phone number is 575-208 or 0. If you're ex-military, I don't want to cause any problems, 4025. Right, so it's 575-208-4025. If you want to leave a message, or if you have any questions, or if you've seen it and you like it too, whatever, man. It's a number for contact, and that contact number becomes important because also in this podcast episode, we have pretty much 2 exclusive eyewitness accounts of seeing some weirdness in the sky around the Brown Mountain Lights area in western North Carolina.
Yeah.
Now, I'm including these 2 things together because basically they're kind of related. It's weird, but it sort of works to be related that way. Mm-hmm. And we also have included some news where the big cat sightings that don't happen because there are no big cats in North Carolina, there's more sightings again.
Yeah. And I kind of think it's weird that they're all correlating at the same time.
Yeah.
And the particular region, because just to throw in the Mothman Legacy again, one of the things I like about that documentary is that it's exploring a lot of the folklore and history that most people aren't aware of the Appalachia.
Which sort of ties into the big cats.
Yeah.
Like we have Wampus cat and we have all sorts of things in this particular area as well.
So the Appalachia, the Blue Ridge, and then the Smoky Mountains, all of these combine for just this total region of high strangeness.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that the big cat sighting and the UAP sightings that we've been seeing here locally are so close together, that's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a thing. And then plus we also have a little bit of a news article that I thought was pretty interesting to put in there. And it's basically what do dinosaurs' buttholes look like? Hey, it's a burning question, right?
Burning question.
Yes, it is. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So very much appreciated for that. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with the Mothman Legacy by Small Town Monsters and Seth Breedlove. And here's the thing. A lot of people will say Seth Breedlove, Small Town Monsters, or Small Town Monsters, Seth Breedlove, or just Seth Breedlove. I don't really know what's the correct way to do that sort of thing. I still don't know.
Okay.
So I say it that way. Small Town Monsters with Seth Breedlove. Maybe wrong. I don't know. But anyway, so the Mothman Legacy. Well, do you want to start?
Yeah. I mean, now if you go ahead and look this up right now, it's streaming on demand on most platforms. And the descriptor paragraph is basically, while many believe the Mothman sightings were based around the 1960s, this documentary explores a continued phenomenon in the region and its lasting legacy on both family and town. And that theme is carried throughout this documentary. It does feature heavily the Wamsley family, Jeff Wamsley, and his continued efforts to explore and investigate the Mothman incident. And then there's some new stuff in there.
Yeah.
But there's this...
Don't talk too much about the new stuff.
Yeah. There's this carried theme throughout here. And it's like exploring how do I put this? It explores this phenomenon from a slightly different perspective. Yeah. I wouldn't say totally opposite of Keel and everybody, but it explores it from a more regional, like historic way. More like a... See,
it's hard to explain this without giving away. and I'm not. These aren't like oh man, pivotal points that's of the movie, but it's hard to explain it. But kind of, you don't want to take away from the movie at all, right?
Yeah.
And so when you start to explain like legacy and things like that, you start to wonder if it takes away from the impact of what's being told here, because it's a unique telling in a way that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about the Mothman, okay? And everybody knows about the TNT area, and everybody knows about the sightings, and everybody knows about the Silver Bridge.
And
everybody has the theories about like Men in Black and John Keel and all that sort of thing. And that's if you paid attention to it at all. And everybody knows about the Mothman Prophecy movie that came out with Richard Gere.
And then on top of that, the younger generations, they're looking at it from like a Fallout and a gaming and
right.
a pop
Everything
culture,
like Fallout 76 was like, and so
a pop culture perspective.
right. So everybody knows about that, and everybody knows the general idea of Mothman being seen, large creature, big red eyes kind of a thing, flaps, scares people, and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Possibly a bird, but not really a bird. This telling is telling this story through the legacy, as in, how it impacts families, how it impacts like the town, all the people in the town. It basically, it's created a lasting legacy that it definitely can, how do I put that? It created a lasting legacy that's still impact. I mean, we're talking from the like late 50s all the way till now. It's still relevant.
Yeah. And it's relevant from a perspective where it's still a paranormal phenomenon, but it's also impacting the future of this town, Point Pleasant.
Right.
I mean, through, and this is a big thing for me to say, but through Jeff Wamsley and his books and creation of the museum,
his wife and his daughter,
and his wife and his daughter, and fellow researchers in the community. Basically, it is starting to carry the future of this town through basically attention. I don't know how to put that.
It's a legacy. You've got people's parents and grandparents that have had incidents and sightings of Mothman. Then you also have some family members that are more modern. I shouldn't say modern, more current, like, sons and granddaughters and that sort of thing, who have also had incidents. So it's like a family thing. And that's part of the legacy of it. It started from a long time ago. There's still reports and sightings today.
Yeah.
So there is a legacy here. And the legacy isn't the fact that the Mothman sightings happened a long time ago and they're still being held. That's not really the legacy. The legacy part of it is family and how it relates, and how this sort of event has tied everything together in this town, the community at large there, the people, the families, and then even internationally.
Yeah.
And kind of brought it all together. And so to talk about it from the side, it's sort of a side perspective. The Mothman story itself, right, is not the focal point of the movie.
Yes, it'll capture your imagination, and yes, it's still one of the biggest unanswered questions.
And it definitely recaps experiences and ties things in, like John Keel, TNT area. It ties all the things that make the Mothman.
But like a legacy, it's evolved.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's like a jawbreaker, man. You had all the incidents that happened. That's the center of the jawbreaker. And now it just keeps getting layer upon layer upon layer. So it's like 5 layers deep. And what's really interesting for us is we have been there. Watching the Mothman Legacy, I could see all the places that they went when they shot different scenes and things like that. And a lot of them we have gone there ourselves, and we have seen the area. And so it's all familiar. And that's part of what really made me really like this legacy version of Mothman sort of story better, I think, than most of the ones that we've seen.
Yeah.
Because it's different. Okay. So it's like if you watch a movie and you've never been there, you have to relate with what you see. But when you watch a movie and you've been to the locations and you've, the story inside and out, I mean, you're really familiar with it. It's a different way of watching it, to where it's like, it's like your truth, right? So you're like, okay, I experienced that. I've seen that. I've been there.
Yeah.
So it just sort of validates what you feel about whatever it is, like the legend, the legacy behind it, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it has more of a personal impact on you when you watch it and you're like, wait, I was there. Wait, I had my own experiences there.
Yeah.
And that also led into something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
full disclosure, we actually had to pause the movie and go start digging through our own stuff, because we went to that particular area. We experienced some general weirdness, and we're talking in one particular area in general, and we had to stop and try to go back and look at some of the things that, little videos that we had made while we were there, and audio clips and things like that to see. And we found some things that we didn't even know we had.
Yeah.
Which is odd. It's like, whoa.
And I say that in the most unenthused way because while exciting that it helped us rediscover our trip to the area, it also left me very unnerved with what we found.
Yeah.
I mean, we have experiences there that aren't matching up, and pictures that aren't matching up, and video that's weird.
Yeah.
And we should eventually talk about that.
Oh, we will, but now we have to go through it. It was just one of those things that just kind of jarred.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Because we took a little trip. We did Flatwoods and went and seen, the area for Flatwoods Monster and Mothman and, all that sort of thing. Later on in that trip, we, basically Seth Breedlove, Stan Gordon, all those guys, we kind of met up with them. Because there was the Western Pennsylvania Conference on the Unexplained. We talked about this in our podcast previously, but it was a great little trip we did. We took off, we had some adventures a little bit and did some filming and stuff like that. And it was a good time. But watching the movie, it just sort of like kicked off like, oh, you know what? Hold on a second. And we started digging through our stuff and we found weirdness that we didn't see from before.
But the way this movie was filmed and the way these shots actually kind of evoked an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
We decided to go through our shots because that's one thing about a lot of Seth's work is like it's so well done. You're like, wow, those are pretty. Now I want to go look at my somewhat pretty pictures,
yeah. Let me look at my garbage footage. But no, I mean, yeah, and see, that's part of it too. I like the way it was filmed. I like the angles. I like, the color science behind, exposures and things like that. And I like that side of it. I like how it's put together. And, I just like that particular style. Now, Momo was a little bit different.
It was fun.
Yeah, a little drive-in movie kind of, that sort of grindhouse sort of feel for Momo. But this was different. This is kind of almost a little bit of a throwback to the way some of the small town monsters docs were done before. But it just had a little bit of a different feel to it. And I liked it. I liked the whole thing. And even pausing it and going and digging through our stuff and going, oh, wow, that's crazy. And then getting back to the movie and then rewatching things, it was worth it.
Yeah.
To see this perspective taken with the Mothman Legacy over all the other stuff that everybody else does when they talk about Mothman. And it put it in a different perspective and it made it fresh.
Yeah.
And also, this Mothman Legacy movie hits on certain things that people never talk about because, for the most part, people make a Mothman sort of clip or a little blurb about Mothman, and they always gloss over the small details. And some of these small details don't necessarily match the narrative of Mothman in general, but those are the details that I look for that I like.
Especially the local narrative.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that one local person that they had, and I forgot her name, but she really focused especially on some of the explanations about Mothman.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, the way she just said that just made certain things click to go, okay, that really is a compelling argument.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. Now, I will say I am going to recommend everybody watch The Mothman of Point Pleasant by Small Town Monsters and then watch this. So
can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Because they do a deep dive into Mothman, but it doesn't regurgitate because you wrote this out so nicely, right?
Yeah.
While it's a deep dive into Mothman, the documentary doesn't regurgitate pop culture or commonplace information that can be looked up with a basic internet search.
Yeah.
Right. There's folklorists and researchers and experiencers sharing Mothman incidents and details that aren't commonly known in the paranormal community.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I just said, is that what I just said?
Pretty much in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
But that's our show notes. And if you're curious about our show notes, they're included on every podcast episode.
Yeah.
But
if you go to creepgeeks.com, you'll find them there in every episode that we do. Also, any links to things that we talk about are also there as well. So
yeah. But
yeah.
That is one of the themes that I think we are going to try to stress in this episode is that there are details here that aren't like surface layer, aren't helicopter view like we usually do on the podcast.
Right.
This explores some more details that most people aren't aware of. And one tiny thing, I think we've already talked about it in a way, but Legacy, it's not just Jeff Wamsley's life. and his experiences that are featured, but it has witnesses and experiencers that have a familial link as it relates to their Mothman experience.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give any too much more away, but I will say some of our friends, some other podcasters, one of them has a feature there, and I was really intrigued by his familial link. Yeah, I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. Now, if you're not familiar with Jeff Wamsley and his family, basically they have the Mothman Museum. Mm-hmm. It's like the one and only, world's only.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a nicely done museum. It's worth seeing if you're ever in that area. And to be honest with you, if you're ever in that area, you're there to see Mothman.
Yeah.
Unless you live there. You know what I mean? You're pretty much going to go and see Mothman. You're going to see the remnants of the Silver Bridge. You're going to see the Mothman Museum. You're going to get directions to go to the TNT area, right? The igloos that are out there, or domes, or however you want to refer to them, because it's like kind of a nature area now.
Yeah.
And that's why you're there. And that's part of this documentary, right, with the legacy side of it, is that, you know, that's why this town is actually on the map.
Yeah.
And it went from being like this weird sort of sci-fi thing that happened in the 50s
or 60s.
Well, it started kind of in the late 50s and carried all the way into the 60s and 70s, right? And sort of carried all the way through, but it's turned into more than just that.
Okay.
Yeah. Why are you shaking your head? No. Late 50s, man. Because you've got everything from Men in Black, Ingrid Cole.
November 15th, 1966.
No. There was lights there before that. Okay, well, anyway, I may be wrong, but I'm not. Don't care. I'm going to move on. But no, that whole area, and see, that's part of it too. Okay, so if you start looking at things as a whole, and a whole in the Appalachian region, right, which goes from Canada all the way down past into Alabama.
Yeah.
There's been a hotbed of activity that's been happening since the beginning, right? And if you go back, well, the Chief Cornstalk legend and all that, it goes even further. So if you look at Appalachia and you talk about the Scotch-Irish living there and everything else that's been in this area, in the area, even in the Western Ohio and Pennsylvania and in North Carolina and Tennessee and all that sort of thing, there is like a band of weirdness that sort of covers through Appalachian mountains and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the mountains are long. They're not just like one little spot, there it is. And it's all sort of this weird conglomeration of stuff that happens. And you hear about a lot of it and you don't necessarily put two and two together, but it's kind of all related.
Yeah.
You know? And then even when you get to like Kecksburg with UFO incident there, it goes on. And it's been going on since, what? I don't even know, man. Since people have been here.
Well,
there's vast spots where Native Americans and the natives that own the land and the tribes and all that stuff, they won't go.
And he explores some of that, too.
Yeah, and we have that in North Carolina, too. There's spots where it's like, nope, they won't go there.
Which is funny because that was one of my conversations I had with Joe Perdue of Wild and Weird, West Virginia. These are pocket areas where the native and indigenous people, they were like, no, we're not. This land, it's either not sacred, or it's consecrated and it is sacred, or it's the land of the dead. Basically, there is some sort of attribution to the land that would make these particular indigenous groups go, we're not going to settle this for good reason.
There's reasons to not go there.
Yeah, and it's funny because that overlap out in West Virginia and then here in Western North Carolina, it's very similar to what some of my friends in New Mexico would tell me about certain areas. And then those areas are the same places where Greg and I would spend Labor Day weekend, you know?
Yeah, like a bunch of idiots. Hey, let's go to the creepiest place. Because we're like, oh, that looks good. Let's go there. And then people are like, why are you there? So it's just kind of a thing. And the thing is for us is that the more we start looking into things, the more we've sort of found that things are kind of related. And the Appalachian Mountains and this whole area, I mean, we're talking about like, you know, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, parts of Ohio, right? North Carolina, parts of Virginia. There's weird stuff. Tennessee, all the way down in Alabama, man, there's just weird stuff that happens.
Yeah.
And then when you get further out west, you know, kind of a weird thing. So as much as things are different, they're the same. And we happen to live in an area of Western North Carolina where we're relatively close to the Brown Mountain Lights.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that here in a couple seconds, but is there anything else that you want to wrap up? Because I don't want to give away too much about the Mothman Legacy and the fact that people, I think you should watch it. It's worth the time, and especially this time of year for sure. It's well done.
Yeah.
It's well filmed. It takes a different perspective on things that will give you especially if you're at all interested in it. It's just I like it. I think it's one of their better,
One of the
I don't want to say offerings because it just sounds weird, but I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
It is,
And it's nice to see this evolution of small town monsters this year with this production, because it definitely shows the ability to create something from a different, I hate to say it, almost a different place in their hearts or a different creative mindset. So it's I don't know. That's why I really like it. So
yeah.
It's
a different telling of the story from a different perspective that makes sense, that ties in.
And it doesn't, that's the one thing about a lot of Mothman stuff I've seen, and not to be disparaging, but it's like some people focus too much on Keel and John Keel and Mothman prophecies. And while this does have a lot of that in there, the focus isn't that. The focus is on the phenomenon and the experiences. And
the impact it's had on those that have experienced it, right?
Yeah. So,
I do think in a lot of ways, Keel gets a free pass with a lot of things that he says.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. He's not the end all be all for phenomenon experience. I mean, he does have some interesting things that he's written, and he does have interesting viewpoints. He's passed away, of course, but he ain't it. He's not the only thing out there as far as, I mean, it's definitely his perspective on things is, I think a lot of people think that Keel's word is, that's it.
Yeah.
But it's not.
No.
And I'm sure there's people out there like, oh my God, how can I don't care, man. He ain't the only one that has ideas, and some of his ideas are pretty far-fetched, although a lot of them do make sense, but it's a narrative that makes sense when you're trying to explain the unexplainable. True. But at the same time, I think there's other validity out there that you can kind of focus on too. And one of the things that I do like, before we kind of move on about Mothman, I can't talk, Mothman Legacy.
Yeah.
Is that there's a couple points that are brought up, right? Mm-hmm. That were brought up by others who had a completely different perspective on all of this, which is more rooted towards reality versus, the fantastical story of Mothman. Or the
ultra-terrestrial type thing.
It's more like, and I don't want to give it away because I don't know if it's a point that may give anything. It's just something I noticed. I'm like, I'm really glad they put that in there. Mm-hmm. Because, if you put that in there and you look at this little factoid, it pops up for about 20 seconds or so and kind of moves on. It can explain a lot of what people seen.
Okay.
And had experiences with. And it's not a moth just whizzing, or moth type, a winged creature with red eyes whizzing around. It's completely rooted in reality. And it's like, that can explain a lot.
Okay.
But, I don't want people to think I'm trying to be down on the legend or whatever. But, hey, man, I think when it comes to doing investigations and stuff like that, you got to look towards what's more realistic.
And be open to everything. That's the one thing that I don't know. I keep stressing, and it's almost like broken record. Be open to all explanations. Yeah. Even the rational ones, even though, yeah.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
People say, hey, man, I seen 3 black helicopters. I say helicopters.
Yeah.
I seen 3 black helicopters flying in formation. Mm-hmm. It went across my house. Seen it with my own eyes.
Okay.
What do you think that is? Me being ex-military and going, what you've seen is 3 military helicopters painted black. Doesn't matter because they paint them different colors, right? Transiting to an area, probably a training area. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They fly around, and depending on where you are and depending on where they're coming from or where they're going to, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Just because you've seen them out of the blue, you're like, oh man, what's that? doesn't mean there's anything strange going on.
I mean, I lived in the flight path of Oceana Base. I mean...
Yeah, Naval Air Station Oceana. Man, you got jets flying all the time. We grew up in a military town. You see helicopters transiting all the time. It even got to the point where you knew that when, okay, this is that time of year where training ramps up because this is what people do. They train to go on missions. Some of those missions are, like Hollywood movie style missions, and some are just the random, you go on for 6 months kind of a mission where you're out there. Like I was in the Navy. That's what we did. We ramped up training to go handle whatever we were going to be deployed to do.
And for people who are like, well, there's no base near where I live.
And it's like, hey, man, helicopters fly.
Yeah.
Just because you were in North Carolina doesn't mean it didn't take off from Georgia.
Yeah.
Or Cherry Point or anywhere there's a military installation. I mean, from where we were in Virginia to get all the way out here to North Carolina is 300 miles by car. You can easily fly a helicopter down to Florida.
Yeah.
You got Mayport, Florida. So, it's just kind of one of those things. Yeah. So anyway, I think we're going to take a real quick break and we'll be right back. And you listen to the CreepGeeks podcast. Yeah.
Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, listeners of CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for your free audiobook.
Hello.
Yes.
We're back. Okay.
So, speaking of stuff in the sky.
Legacy's good.
Okay.
Watch Mothman Legacy. There you go.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't see this. We should be the first ones to say that we didn't actually experience this firsthand. Or like some people say, with my very own eyes.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, it just bugs me. And I'm not going to say Zach Baggins says that. If I hadn't seen it, we've experienced it with my very own eyes. It's like, okay. And I get why he says it, but... Okay, so here's the deal. Kind of sort of set the scene a little bit. We were hanging out, weren't doing anything. Right? Mm-hmm. You get a text message.
From somebody.
I get an email from somebody. These two somebodies are relatively geographically close to each other at the same time frame.
And they are not friends. They do not know of each other.
They don't hate each other. They don't know each other.
Yeah.
They are unrelated. They just happen to be occupying geographically an area in proximity to each other.
Yes.
That area is an area that we're familiar with that we go to upon occasion, and we're just going to call it the Brown Mountain Lights area.
Yes.
All right, so we're setting a scene and doing a poor job of it, but that's okay. So one person was actually at the Brown Mountain Lights overlook.
Yep.
And there's a little sign, in case you're wondering, that says Brown Mountain Lights overlook. So if you ever want to know where it is, you can just kind of pull right up. So they were there, and the awful thing for us is I didn't see the email until after they were already gone. Otherwise, we'd have tried to make it out there where they were to say, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
But, you working and everything else. It didn't happen.
Yeah. I had to work that day, too. I'm so mad.
Well, you worked. Yeah. Anyway, so you worked like 6 days out of a week. Anyway, so we missed the opportunity to go hang out with this person. We're going to call him John because that's his name.
Yeah. So
John was actually at the Brown Mountain Lights overlook.
Yep. At mile marker 20.
Right.
This was on a Saturday evening. Now he says, we did not see the lights, but we were fascinated by how bright the stars were. That's the other thing. That was a relatively clear night, too. And
yeah, it was very clear, actually.
Yeah. I think I took photos of the moon. Anyways, so we did see an object in the sky flashing red-white that made a sharp turn and moved very quickly. I expect it was a jet, but who knows? It was moving at normal speed at first. It actually reversed course in a hairpin type turn, then rapidly crossed the sky about 5 times faster than other planes with that bright of lights. The reason I thought it was a jet was because of the trailing jet sound. It started almost over Brown Mountain, heading to the right, which is south-southwest. And then after approaching another jet moving in the opposite direction, it doubled back, speeded up significantly, and then flew off to our left, which is north-northwest. For a few moments, I thought it might be a drone moving that fast, but then I heard the trailing jet engine sound. A couple more notes. I believe it took less than 15 seconds to reach the horizon, starting from above us. Also, the trailing jet-like sound was faint. In fact, the person he was with did not even hear it. That's basically another confusing point for John. To be a jet that was that fast might indicate it was a low-flying jet, but the jet engine sound was so faint and trailing so far behind, it had to have been very high, similar in altitude to normal jet traffic. Now, however, the red and white blinking lights were further apart on the object than I would have expected to observe on a jet that high. Maybe it was very high, very fast, and rather large as well.
Yeah. Okay, so he goes to see the lights and winds up seeing something whizzing around up there that's unusual, right?
Yeah.
And I thought this was pretty interesting, the red and white lights and the fact that it was making the maneuvers and the sound. And here's something to kind of think about, too. You can have sound trailing behind if things are traveling very fast or very high. And also, if the thing flying by is small, you might not catch the sound right away.
Okay. So
it's kind of a perception thing when it comes to that. And I thought that was pretty weird when, we heard about this. I'm like, that's kind of strange. Right. And then to kind of bring things to circle here with Heather.
Yeah.
I didn't, you want to read this one?
Yeah.
With her.
So this report actually comes from a camping area, like in the Linville Gorge Wilderness.
Which is not far. This whole area, okay, it's it's hard to describe. You've got Brown Mountain Lights. Mount Mitchell is over this way. The whole Linville Gorge area, they're all from the sky. You can see them all, but if you're trying to get there, it's driving, it's windy mountain roads. They're separated between, around mountains. So it's a little bit of a distance.
Like if Greg and I had been at Wiseman's View this evening, we would have been able to look and see the approximate location that John was at. Yeah. And then we would have been able to pretty much look to the left and see the general area that Heather had been camping at.
Yeah.
That's how big this area is, but how kind of, I don't know how to describe it.
It's a mountainous area that's, if you were walking on foot, it would take you forever, but if you're flying, it's like nothing to hit from one peak to the other.
Yeah. So we were camping off Highway 80, about 10 miles north of the Blue Ridge Parkway turn to head to Mount Mitchell. We saw an odd plane late in the evening. I think it was military. It was triangular, silver with white and red lights. We heard a sound, like a sonic sound that was behind it. It was really odd. Then, when we all woke up in the morning, there were fighter jets flying and circling overhead. The silver triangular thing was large like a plane, but it was flat, and a weird bright light configuration in the front. The sound came from way, way behind it. And then when I caught up with Heather, she really stressed the whole sound being way heavy, way like sonic, but also way behind it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Kind of weird.
And what's funny is, like, when these reports came in, I did hop onto, of course, Facebook and social media. And I did see other people saying, hey, did you see that in the sky?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them here in this area, they got a lot of the knee-jerk reactions. Ooh, aliens, But the fact that these are the same region, very credible, reports. And I don't know. I really
red and white lights, sound trailing behind it. Kind of weird to see it.
Yeah.
I think John... who's a patron, by the way, of our CreepGeeks Patreon, I think he's seen the same thing that Heather's seen.
Yeah.
No, it is a UAP. It is an unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Yep.
it's more than likely military, because to me it sounds like a big old military drone. Because we have them. They're not all like your standard drone shape where they just don't look like triangles and stuff. There's lots of different types of drones that the military has.
I think it's like one of those unmanned vehicle things.
Yeah. I mean, because a drone doesn't care about the bag of meat and bones that's in it, because there wouldn't be. It would be a vehicle that you can control and make it do all sorts of maneuvers and stuff, because you don't have to worry about any kind of human occupant.
Yeah. What I found really interesting was, well, two things. The directions that John gave, which was, you know, where it approached from over Brown Mountain and then how it flew off. That originally, it's almost like it did start off in a similar flight pattern to some of the planes that do go through that area, because you do see, like, if you look to one side of Brown Mountain, that is a flight path, and people do mistake Brown Mountain lights and when they're actually planes.
Yeah. Well, I think it went into the area and then went back out of the area, because I think it's flying through the gorge. I think it's using the mountains as a training area, which a lot of helicopters do. People see helicopters flying all through there. And they may or may not be going into hidden secret military bases, or they may just be doing training.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that what they've seen military. I think they've seen a drone. I think that they've seen a military evolution that can't be explained, because we will never know.
I know.
But I just thought it was kind of cool that two people that we know, you know, seen the same thing and reported basically the same thing in two different geographical areas.
Yeah.
So you don't have like a sighting that's being reported from one person that says, man, look what I seen. It's two people and we know them. So it's like, okay, so do I think there's credibility to these stories? Absolutely. Two people that don't even know each other said basically the same thing.
I know. That's the thing that I'm like.
The only thing that John didn't say was the shape of it, because it was dark. He couldn't see the shape of it.
Yeah. And Heather was she's on the ground. She's out there camping in the wilderness.
And she's seen it go whizzing by. She's like, what?
So, and then for me, the further validation was I did go check out like the local groups on social media, and there were other people who saw something strange in the sky.
And, you know, I hate to say it, but Facebook can be a place to actually find some information, because a lot of people who may not necessarily be interested in this sort of thing in any kind of official capacity or whatever is probably going to go on Facebook, because they can hit all their friends and go, did you see this weird thing?
Yeah.
I mean, they do it to tell you when your grass is too getting too tall, right?
Yeah.
I think this person needs to cut their grass, so why would they not?
Yeah.
Pop on the Facebook and say, hey, does anybody, have any experience, or has anybody seen what I have seen?
Yeah.
So, now there's people out there right now that are like, you can't believe anything you see on Facebook. And I think those people, I'm talking about a specific type of person who basically is an expert at this kind of thing, and they just basically discount anything that a normal person says because they're an expert.
The reach there for the word normal.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's do it like this. We're interested in paranormal and weird news and ghosts and UFOs and all of that sort of thing, to the point where we research it. We talk about it. We go to places that have had, encounters or experiences or whatever, to where they're known. And, that's kind of like where we vacation, right? So I would not think that we're in the same sort of category as, let's just call them normies. Like a normal person who happens to be riding in their car and they see something weird.
Yeah.
That may not be their thing. That's not their hobby. They're not out there doing it. They don't have a paranormal and weird news podcast. You know what I'm saying? But there are people out there that do the research, that are field investigators. They've been doing this for 20, 30 years. And whenever like a civilian or a normie makes a report, they're kind of like, because they have so much vast experience and knowledge. Well, they may have a tendency to slightly discount what that person said.
Okay.
And that's wrong, by the way. Shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when it comes down to it, it's the one thing, despite myself being a big skeptic and always trying to find like some sort of rational explanation to things, the thing that I want to celebrate is that human experience. You experience something unusual. So
yeah, I don't know if I'd celebrate it. That's kind of a strong word.
I know, but that's...
I understand. You want to take part in the human experience and be, enthusiastic. Celebrate, like, yay!
Stop.
Dude, you seen a ghost? Yay!
Anyways,
that's what I think.
Stop. You're so mean.
I'm not being mean. I'm just, I think a lot of people maybe, celebrate's a strong word, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Acknowledge. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not being critical of what you're saying at all. I'm not. Because there's people like that who's like, I was exuberant. It's like, I have never been exuberant in my life. I don't really know what that means.
Here, write this down. Greeting cards that celebrate paranormal experiences.
Yeah, but then, it still seems a strong word. You know what I mean?
You saw your first ghost. Yay!
Yay! I can't believe that you've seen something that nobody's seen and people really wanted to see.
Yeah.
Much like our next subject.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I got some hot chocolate stuck in my throat because it was spooky season.
That's true.
That's right. You did it old school, man. You made it with the powder, the cocoa powder, and the milk, and a little bit of cinnamon and all that stuff. You did it old school, man.
Yeah. And not happy with it.
Yeah, it's all right. It was good.
I'll go back to my cheap little packets of hot chocolate.
Okay, so here at CreepGeeks Podcast, there are two things we know to be true. The first thing is that there's big cats in Western North Carolina. It's like that thing, no, there ain't no bears here. Like, well, there's bear prints. Someone's been tearing in my trash cans. Gotta be a bear. Nope, not a bear. And it's almost like, why do places do that where they won't readily admit that there may be large carnivore in your neighborhood, kind of a thing, right? And it's the kind of the way I think it is here in North Carolina, is like, they say that big cats don't exist.
Yeah. And there's like all these articles where I guess different wildlife organizations, fish and game, biologists, they all keep trying to say there are no large cats in Western North Carolina. They all say there was an eastern cougar and it's extinct and now it's only found in parts of Florida. Large feline creatures short of bobcats don't exist here in Western North Carolina.
Like, here's a quote, and it's highlighted, so it's real easy to read. There are no known cougars in North Carolina. This is according to Jody Owens of the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission.
Okay.
She told the Charlotte Observer, which is where this article came from, we get lots of reports every year from folks who think they've seen a cougar. Usually it's a house cat, a bobcat, a coyote, or even dogs or black bears that have been misidentified as cougars.
And
that's kind of insulting to me. I mean, I know what a bear looks like in comparison to a big ass cougar.
Like a big feline cougar. How am I going to misidentify a coyote, which I have tons of experience from, not just living in Virginia, North Carolina, and New Mexico. I know what a coyote looks like. Yes. How are you going to tell me, oh no, that's not a big cat, that's a coyote?
Yeah.
Or dogs, that's even more insulting. Now, black bears, the particular spot we live in, black bears are uncommon because we live in what's called the North Carolina foothills.
Yeah.
We live at a slightly lower elevation, so they're not as common. They are literally only half an hour, 40 minutes away. They're very common. So, like, we have friends and family who would have black bears on their property every year, and it was a nuisance. So we know where the bears are. Yeah. If somebody were to start acting up out here, or if critter activity were to start acting up out here, the first thing I would think is a bobcat.
Yeah.
But then,
or coyote or fox or something like that.
But then when you start to see things like tracks that are bigger or larger dogs disappearing in a neighborhood, or unfortunately meeting an untimely fate, you start to wonder what larger predator is out there. And the sighting that we're talking about right now, this occurred in McDowell County, which, again, like I said, it's the foothills of the Blue Ridge on the North Carolina side. So they're called the North Carolina foothills. Now, the report I've gotten and talk to the witness. It involves howls late at night, early evening to late at night, freaked out dogs in the small neighborhood, because it's not a very big neighborhood. I mean, it's a lot of land, because like everybody in this little stretch of road, they all own like multiple acres, but it's not a lot. It's not a big neighborhood. There's only like 10 houses there.
Yeah. I mean, they're talking about in an area that's not very large overall.
Yeah.
And like even when the article says it's that cougars are considered to be extinct, but just over the past weekend, right, a few dozen people came forward over Facebook.
Yeah.
Or on Facebook, saying that they're still seeing them in North Carolina, no matter what the experts say. And it started on Saturday when a chef in Morganton, North Carolina, admitted on a Facebook page devoted to Bigfoot research that he believes he saw a cougar, also known as a mountain lion, near the incorporated community of Nebo in western North Carolina. It's not far from us.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you exactly where we are because we broadcast from an underground, undisclosed location.
Oh, I deliver and do work in Nebo like every Tuesday.
Yeah, and what he says is, I know I'll catch some flack for this, but I will swear this to my grave. I have seen a cougar not once but twice in Nebo in the past month or so. Mm-hmm. And instead of being mocked, his post was met with comment after comment from people that are saying that they've also seen what they believe to be a cougar in the region. You know, and many were defensive too, knowing that they'd be accused of misidentifying a bobcat as a cougar.
Yeah.
And like one guy says, Billy, we jumped one at Lake James one night on expedition.
Oh, wow.
And this is from a person who does Bigfoot research and stuff like that. He says it was huge and had a tail 3 feet long, and it was not a bobcat.
Yeah.
Another person saying they seen one a half mile away from their house in Green Mountain. Definitely a cougar. And I think it's condescending and dismissive when wildlife biologists or whoever say they aren't around when people are obviously seeing them.
Yeah.
You know, there was one outside my son's school once, and all the kids saw it. They're just incredibly elusive.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, are all these official people saying that they don't exist and they're extinct in our area or in this particular area because there's not enough numbers to bring them off the extinction list? I mean, how many cougars do people have to see before they start to say, yeah, there's cougars around?
So that's where I think earlier this year, like the Wildlife Commission and certain like Forest Service, they did start setting up trail cameras. And the funny thing was there wasn't enough evidence on the trail cameras to support evidence of big cats. But then I couldn't find the article link earlier this year. They found, or not, no, it was last year.
Yeah.
The traffic cam caught a picture of a large cat.
It's funny you bring that up because they say at some point over the past 100 years or so, a cat would have been hit by a car, shot by somebody, or otherwise documented as coming into the state. Okay, Bigfoot. They also said the same thing about coyotes.
Yeah.
Coyotes, they're not in North Carolina, and they never have been, and blah, blah, blah. And they have to cross the Mississippi River, and they haven't figured that out yet. Now, when they said that was about 7 or 8 years ago, and we were on our way to New Mexico. On our way to New Mexico, as in moving, and I counted 4 dead ones in North Carolina on the way to New Mexico.
Yeah.
As we left. So there you go. And, it's funny, if you bring this up, too, yeah, I seen a cougar, a mountain lion, a big cat, right? Mm-hmm. And people, they don't even bat an eye. They're like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a secret here. Everybody has seen them.
And we talk to locals all the time. The report that I'm sharing with you guys now, it's somebody whose whole family has been here, like most of their, forever. And they've talked about it. And even our sister-in-law, she talked about her, like one of her relatives having a big cat experience too.
Yeah.
And they're out there. Now, this most recent report is actually from a couple of weeks ago. And I'm not going to talk too much about who the witness is, but this started off about, I want to say a month ago. And it started off with their dog, their large dog, being really freaked out about like 9 o'clock at night. It would just go out, bark real loud, basically do a walking tour of the property and be very, very on guard, and then it would bark, and it would bark in a very specific direction.
Yeah.
So, she would try to get her dog to come inside, and after the dog would come inside, she would hear very large, loud howls, like cat howl. Like, I don't know. What is that?
Make the sound.
No, I'm not going to make it.
Okay.
So, and neighbors have been hearing that as well. A lot of the dogs and the goats and some of the sheep in the area have been all on edge lately. So neighbors have been trying to put all their small barn animals away. So
they're desert animals?
Well, no.
Yeah.
But this has culminated into people seeing some paw prints in this one particular neighborhood in McDowell County, and now an alleged trail cam picture.
Yeah. So what we actually have here is we have a real life cryptid.
Yeah.
In North Carolina.
Yeah.
That regular people have seen. That the city, state, whatever, they say doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So there you go. We just think it's kind of weird. And eventually somebody's going to see one, shoot one, do whatever, and it's going to become a thing. They go, huh, yeah, they really are. And everybody that knows is going to be like, yeah, told you.
Yeah.
And they do this periodically. When we read these articles that show up every so often about big cats being seen in North Carolina, they always have a tendency to do something related to that particular post. Like if you look on a website like charlotteobserver.com, they'll put something in there. And they usually put, a related article or whatever to sort of defuse what may happen. And I don't know whether I'm just reading into it or if it's true or not, but like related stories from the Charlotte Observer related to this big cat thing. Deer and raccoon caught kissing in the dark on camera.
What?
NC biologists are perplexed. So somebody evidently has probably got a trail camera set up and they caught a picture of a deer. Yep, that's what it is. It's a trail camera picture, and you have a deer and a raccoon hanging off a tree, and it looks like they're kissing. And the caption says, "What are this deer and raccoon up to? State biologists are dying to know." And this is from North Carolina's Candid Critters photo.
Oh, yeah.
It features a deer smooching a raccoon dangling from a tree limb. Their dewy eyes glowing in the dark. Is this what happens? Is this what it appears to be? A raccoon kissing a deer? Man, we're talking about big cats, stuff that can be dangerous. Cougars.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I got. Well, I was looking at some of the pictures, and they're like, what is this? And it's like, there's obviously a bobcat. There's an elk with no horns. There's a big bird, like a least tern. And there's obviously a dog eye in this Candy Critters thing.
Yeah.
Where he's like looking at it. But I just think it's funny because they talk about the species being notoriously mischievous and all this stuff. Talking about raccoons, right? Trash pandas.
Yeah.
But they won't admit, hey, there may be enough people who have seen a cougar. You might want to watch out for that kind of thing. Because, I mean, in New Mexico, there's signs everywhere. Watch out for bear, cougar, rattlesnakes, tarantulae. That's plural.
And then 1 year naked people.
Naked people. They're warning you because if you're on the trail, right, you kind of want to be aware of that sort of thing, but they won't do that here.
Yeah.
Because they want more evidence. So.
Yep.
I don't know what you're showing me.
I'm showing you the alleged trail cam photo. So.
Yep.
Yeah. The thing about that tree, I know what tree that is. And because the witness has shown me that tree, that tree is this big around.
For everybody who can't see what's happening over the internet, it's at least 4 feet around.
Yeah.
See, that's a big cat, man. That's not.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, yeah, we see articles like this. We kind of look at them and stuff like that. And since it can affect us locally, it's a real life cryptid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like one day they're actually going to have pictures of the Tasmanian devil, right? There's been like 3 or 4 snaps, that they've caught, and they're going to eventually say, yeah, hey, it exists again.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the things that we know to be true. The other thing is that now we know and have the answer to the burning question of what a dinosaur's butthole looks like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So people, this was evidently a question that I needed to have answered that I didn't even know existed.
Yes.
So it says, we finally know what a dinosaur's butthole looks like. And the article came from Slate, like Slate.com, and it came from somewhere else because, it is what it is. It says, what a new fossil tells us about dinosaurs, paleontology, and us. So I'm going to click on it. Mm-hmm. And I like what the guy reads or puts in the article. It says, for the entirety of my career as a journalist covering paleontology, I've been wanting to know, what does a dinosaur's butthole look like? When I wrote my book, Beloved Brontosaurus, a book about dinosaur biology, the chapter on reproduction required a lot of time imagining the nature of a Jurassic behind, because one had yet to be found preserved. Even dinosaur models and sculptures often demur on the point of the dino butt, leaving the terrible lizards with terrible constipation.
Oh.
It says, now I finally have a clearer view thanks to a fossil horned dinosaur called Psittacosaurus.
Okay.
And it's described in a paper online from earlier this month. It's like these dinosaurs, which lived over 100 million years ago, and now what's northeastern China, were odd little creatures. While belonging to the same branch of dinosaur family tree as Triceratops, these Labrador Retriever-sized dinos walk around on two legs, had beaks like parrots and cheeks that were adorned with a flared horn, and jutting from the tail, a spray of feather-like bristles. Now we also know that they had buttholes like those of crocodiles.
So I actually opened the scientific article paper thing, and they have a picture of it. So I'm going to show it to you.
Okay.
Somehow.
Well, it is a laptop. They actually put a square over it so you could see it. Well, they say it's the same as or looks the same as a crocodile butthole. Nice. I wonder if it's got a cloacia.
There. So they have arrows to the cloaca region.
Yeah, they're pointing to the...
they have a blown up diagram of the dinosaur butt.
Yeah. If you go to our Facebook page, because we have a CreepGeeks Facebook group and the Facebook page, I have shared this link.
Yeah. So the article's up, but then you have to scroll down into the article to find the scientific paper.
Yeah.
And the article says you need to go to page 4 to actually see what the dinosaur.
They have a little sign that says butthole page 4. Funny, right? So basically, these things had they look like crocodile/alligator buttholes. So, because it's kind of rare to get a look at something soft and fleshy in a dinosaur, because most of what they have is like skeletal remains, like bones and stuff like that.
No,
the durable parts are what they find when they go digging up stuff.
My thing is, this is actually a really cute dinosaur. It's a little, like you said, it was a lab-sized.
Yeah, it's like a little runner, like you see in Jurassic Park. Those little things running around. You got the big, important dinosaurs, the ones that they spend a little time on. The rest of the ones just whizzing around. It's kind of like that.
But then it's got like porcupine quill feather type things sticking off of the top of its tail.
Yeah,
like a ridge.
A little spray of hair.
But I think I did not ever need to know what.
Yes, you did.
But
because let me read you the actual description of the butthole. Oh. It says the actual description of the butthole, which appears in the paper that has yet to be peer reviewed, makes the person have a sympathy for the dinosaur that probably they expect to have in its posterior, because it's formally presented in the technical literature of over 100 million years after its death. Mm-hmm. We're worried about this thing's butthole. It says just below the tail, the butthole appears as a blackish mottled ovid area. Right, to be naked to the eye, spots look like a series of stacked bands running along the base of the tail and hip bones, clearly different from the skin around it. And what those bands mean, the paper tells us, is that the Psittacosaurus had a downstairs setup like a cloacia. Mm-hmm. And this is pretty different from our own mammalian plumbing. And while we all know about the old joke about a playground next to a sewage system, I don't know what he's talking about.
It's in reference to our reproductive exits and our sewage exits.
Gross. It says we've got nothing to complain about compared to the animals that have a cloacia. This orifice, its very naming sewer, is the only opening for everything. So it's got it all in one shot: reproductive, urinary, and excretory systems. So it's an all-in-one, kind of like a crocodile alligator thing. So there you go. The reason why we need to know this is because we didn't know what it looked like. Now we know what it looks like, and it just looks like nothing from the outside.
And then the end of the article takes you to dinosaur.
I mean, what if it looked like a reverse funnel or something, and every time this thing coughed or sneezed, it would make like a whoopee cushion noise?
Oh, that's horrible.
That would be the greatest thing ever. So when I went and read part of this article, I'm like, okay, well, it looks like a cloacia. I'm not that interested anymore, but it would be funny.
Like I was saying, the end of the article takes you to dinosaur erotica, if that's your thing.
That's disgusting, and we're going to move on from that. Okay, so we actually talked about the Mothman Legacy.
Yeah.
And we did a poor job of describing why you should see it while trying to dance around the not giving things away and then probably giving some things away. Mm-hmm. And so the takeaway from that was it's good. You should watch it. It has a different perspective on things. I like the way it's filmed. It's well done.
Yeah.
It's not, over the top or boring, and it actually includes some details that are always glossed over and always lost in some of the other productions that we've seen about Mothman.
Yeah.
And this new telling is worth telling, basically, is what it boils down to. And you can find it all over the internet. It's on Amazon Prime. We have links, so you can kind of see it. And if it's on Amazon Prime, I don't think this is free yet, but it will be maybe someday. I don't know. But there's different places you can download it and watch. You can get it from Vudu, Amazon.
Vimeo.
I can't think of the. Anyway.
Vimeo.
Yeah, there you go. Vimeo. So anyway, it's nice. We have links if you want to check it out. You can also go to smalltownmonsters.com and follow their links there. And you can join the Small Town Monsters squad off of YouTube, where you get all sorts of behind the scenes stuff, which is good. And then we talked about the unexplained or unidentified aerial phenomenon occurring over Brown Mountain Lights area, which is pretty close to this, by two people that we know in two different geographical locations. They don't know each other.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that more people haven't seen it, because if those two people seen it, just a random sampling of people seen it, I'm sure lots of other people have seen it, like you said. Where's MUFON with all this? I wonder if anybody's actually turned anything into MUFON. Probably not, but anyway. We thought that was kind of cool. We also talked about big cats in New Mexico, in western North Carolina. They're prevalent in New Mexico. You got to watch them when you're out there. And then we kind of rounded things off with dinosaur buttholes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're sitting around bored and you want some things to watch, we have a little bit of a list of things that you can watch.
Yeah.
And, you're calling it the spooky season binge watch.
Yeah. And this is mostly if you stream off Amazon Prime. These are just a couple of the ones that we've either watched or they're on our list for Halloween. So
yeah, we've watched all these.
Yeah. So, Native Bigfoot I haven't seen.
No, we haven't watched that one
because it's new.
Yeah.
So that one's on the list. But if you're sitting there and you're watching Mothman Legacy and you feel like, okay, maybe you need a refresher, I do recommend the Mothman of Point Pleasant.
Yes.
And then, heck, go ahead and throw in the Mothman Prophecies.
Yeah.
It seems an even split. People either hate that movie or they appreciate it.
Yeah. I'd seen it and don't remember anything about it because it didn't have that much of an impact on me. So.
But then, while you're at it, you can go ahead and Small Town Monsters has a full library of stuff on Amazon Prime. And we are really looking forward to taking a look at Native Bigfoot. We were supposed to watch the premiere of it at Wild and Weird, West Virginia, because that's where they were going to premiere it. And yeah.
And yeah.
And then 2020
like all good
happened.
things, 2020 cancellated it.
Yeah. But we still want to support those guys, and I am looking forward to this because it is an unbiased, direct from the source and basically discussion and exploration of Bigfoot from that indigenous perspective.
Sweet.
From anywhere from like the indigenous and native tribes here in the U.S. all the way to the First Nations in Canada.
That's cool.
So yeah, I really want to see that.
Very nice. Mm-hmm. That's about it.
Yeah. Now, I do want to let everybody know how do I say this? We are trying to make our Facebook group grow. So I will be sharing our group throughout the different paranormal communities and on our Facebook page. We definitely want that to grow. Yes, we share a lot of fun stuff, a lot of memes and things like that. But we want to start having more direct conversation and threads and just talking to people in the group. So check the group out. I know if you like our page, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Join the group as well so we can start having a little more discussions in there. Again, thank you to our Patreon supporters. That's going to be Dave, Adam, James, Bobby, John, and now Isis. Thank you guys so much. Y'all's October rewards went into the mail last week.
They should be there.
Yeah, so let us know you got them. Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks to John, who's a patron, who basically hit us up with an email and said, hey, man, look what I seen.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Now, if you guys want to support us on Patreon, that's going to be patreon.com/CreepGeeks. Again, feedback, suggestions about the show, or if you just want to share your weird experience, that's going to be contact@creepgeeks.com, or call us and leave a message, 575-208-4025.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yep.
So anyway, you've been listening to the CreepGeeks Podcast. This was episode number 196. This was the Mothman Legacy, Brown Mountain Lights area UAP sightings and big cats in western North Carolina and butthole dinosaur. First look, right? Anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.